Welcome back, guys. Right, so when we left off, we'd finished the visor and just had the exhaust shroud and the wing mirrors to assemble. Now, I have to say, I have pushed on purely because I'm conscious the build is dragging on a little, and also with the fiddliness of these parts, it wasn't just the best to film. However, with the wheels off, here we go. We've got the chassis cab ready, and I have to say I'm really impressed. Bonnet just comes off. Put the bottom mounting bracket in there with these two little lugs. There are steel pins that go through this, and we'll put that in later on. And obviously we've got the front grille on the front, and we can see a beautiful detail in the Oshkosh on the front of the bumper, which is fantastic. And then I can just pop the cab off. So I've got the cab doors. Now I've only glued them in with a little bit of PVA glue, just in case they want to come off again, or we need to take them off to clear any dust out. I have done my very best to get all the dust out of the cab, but the visor's gone on. We've got all the little marker lights on the visor, and then we've made up the wing mirrors. It wasn't too bad, to be honest with you. Stuck the plastic parts on, a little bit of bending here for the lower rearview mirror bracket, and then we've got two brackets, one top, one bottom, and I've just left it free to move at the moment, purely because it'll make it easier to mask the windows up. Windows all went in with no problem at all. These side windows go in from the outside, and the wind down window and the quarter light go in from the inside. And then underneath, simply assembled the first stage silencer for the exhaust pipe, and then the heat shield, photo etch heat shield around it. And then this side here, we've got a fuel filter or something gone in here. There is vinyl tubing, and it says vinyl tubing. If we look here, it says 0.7 mil diameter duct, 5 times 15 mil. But what I've ended up using is, if you can see that, is 0.8 mil lead wire, and it is just the 15 mil, and then it's just glued in nicely. So that is the cab finished. That's the chassis finished. We've got all the wheels finished. So what next? Let me just set this out the way. I'm going to put the cab. The cab fits really nicely on the locating points, and fits nicely on the chassis. So that'll keep it safe. So cab's out of the way. We've done all this. Move to the next side. We've done all parts 22, so that's obviously mounting the cab up. We've built the wheels up just as straight out of the instructions. There were no trouble whatsoever. The tyres went on there, no trouble whatsoever. Mounted the front bracket onto the front of the engine bonnet or the hood. There is one piece of photo etch I still need to put in, which we'll do that in a moment, and then the photo etch piece on the front, the main grille, and then that's really the whole chassis cab assembled. So the next thing moving on to is parts 23. So parts 23 is the exhaust stack. So quite a bit of photo etch to do here, and then we're moving on to the winch pack assemblies here. Again, there's more photo etch. So what I'm proposing to do, because we've got a left hand and a right hand winch, is I'll try and do the part 23 on camera, because we'll have to figure out how we get that U-bend in the heat shield. So I think that'll be worth showing. We'll get that all together, and then I'm actually going to assemble this winch here. So this is, does it tell you which one it is? Doesn't even tell you. It's like, no, it doesn't tell you left hand or right hand, but basically we've got the mirror. So part 20 And if we look here, then you've got a left hand and a right hand winch. So I'm going to figure out how it goes together here, and then we'll repeat the process and I'll film it for you guys. So that'll be part 25, and then we're on part 26, which is the winch assembly. So we'll film part 25 because I'll know what I'm doing then. And then part 26 shouldn't be too bad because it's mostly plastic parts, and that's the winch deck and the control unit. There's a few bits of photo etch grills and obviously marker lights as well. The marker lights I've used are GP2-5, so I haven't used the 6. And then there's obviously some photo etch reflectors which are still on photo etch fret MD. And then 27 is finishing off the winch deck assembly. Quite a bit of photo etch here. We've got to make up a brass wire here for the pogo, and that is for the air hose connections for the trailer brake system. And then part 28 will be last few bits on the winch deck assembly, and then that will get mounted, dry fitted to the chassis, where we can then from the stack to the muffler get that final stage in place, rough fitted to make sure it was okay before we break it down for paint. There's a couple of bits here which possibly are lighting units, maybe, I don't know. It doesn't tell you what it is, which is a shame because it would be nice to know what it is. And then we've got step 29, which is the last bit of sort of decking, photo etch decking to go down on the chassis frame. That I think will complete, that'll complete the tractor unit. So we're actually getting really well on with the tractor unit. And what I'm thinking to do is we're going to build the tractor unit, we'll build it and paint it, and then we'll take a break from all this because the trailer unit looks to be an absolute nightmare, as we'll actually build the Abrams, get that ready, and then we build the trailer unit, and then obviously once the trailer unit's finished we can actually put the whole kit together and make a diorama out of it. So we are pushing on and it's coming on not too bad. So what I'm going to do is we'll skip back to parts 23 and 24, is I'll get all these parts here laid up as I usually do. We'll lay it out and I'll lay these parts out, and then we will get on and we'll fold this photo etch and we'll try and show you guys how I do it. There are loads of different ways to do it, but I'll just have to do it with the tools I've got. I don't actually have any rolling tools for photo etch. It's the one thing I don't have, so it'll be a good way for me to figure out how to do it and show you how I overcome the fact I don't have that particular tool. So anyway, enough waffling. I'll get all these parts laid out and we'll come back once the parts are laid out and we'll see how things go. So I'll see you in a moment. Welcome back, guys. So exhaust stack, I have glued parts F20 to F46, and I've also glued F30 to F23. So we're now at the point where we've got this plastic part here, like so. And we've got to get photo etch MB8. We've got MB13 and then MA4x2. Got to get this built up, and I had a thought about it. So cut MB8 off, and as usual just scuff the back up so we've got some keying in the metal surfaces to adhere to the other photo etch and the plastic. We've got MB13 and I've folded it just with a hold and fold, as I've shown you with other pieces, so that's ready to go. And it is it's not a handed part, but it's a directional part. So there are a couple of bolts here, and they're further to one end as the other, and that goes up the way. So we've got that part ready. And then I had to think about parts MA4, how we're going to do that, because it's saying put them on after you've glued it to the exhaust stack. And I thought, well, that's going to be a challenge because God knows if we're going to get it in the right place. And then I thought, well, actually, we know that part MB13 goes on the top here. Why don't I just lay that on, mark a line, yep, done that, and then we'll glue MA4 actually in place before we bend it, and at least that way we know that the bent part should butt up to where the inside of MA4 is. That's the plan. So that's what I've done. So basically I've bent and folded MB13, we've cut MA4s and glued them to the respective location on part MB8. So now we have to roll it. And it just so happens I've got a leftover piece of brass rod that's not far off the radius we're needing to roll this. So this is what we're going to use. Now, we can anneal this if we want, but I don't think we need to. And by when I say annealing, it's just heat it up until it glows with a lighter and then let it cool down, and it basically normalizes the metal and softens it, so it's easy to work it. Brass as a metal gets brittle the more you work it. It's called work hardening. So basically it hardens up the crystalline structure of the metal the more you bend it, and it'll get to the point where metal fatigue sets in and you will snap it. So to overcome that, you do a process called annealing, which is where you basically heat the metal up, which gives the crystalline structure a chance just to settle itself down, let it cool down, and it'll be nice and soft and malleable again. And you need to do that a few times if you're having to rebend a part, but hopefully we'll get this in one go. So how are we going to do it? Well, cutting mats are your friends. What you need to do is make sure we get the bar level, and then we just want to press on it and roll it back and forth, and it does nothing. No, it flattens out. What we can do is get a softer sponge. So we use this sponge here I've got. Set the part on, come in with the rod, and then we just want to roll it back and forth. And you see it starting to bend, hopefully. Back and forth just in the middle section where it wants to bend. We don't want to go past where the perforations are, because those are on the side and it needs to be flat. So we just want to roll the middle. And you can see the more we roll it, the more it starts to curl up, and we're getting that natural bend in there. And it will go so far, and then it will, you need to get it on a softer piece of rubber maybe, but you can see now we're starting to get a nice curve on it, and that's how you roll metal basically. Certainly photo etch brass, you need a nice soft surface to press down onto, and then a nice firm rod, metal dowel, and you just want to roll it back and forth, and you will bend it. It might take a little time, but it will get to the point where if you can get down the center, you can then just gently form it over the metal. Just take your time. This is where you don't want to rush, because when you rush you make mistakes, and when you make mistakes you just ruin parts. And the main thing is to keep that bend, the fold, running true up and down the part. Otherwise you end up with a squint part, and it's an absolute nightmare to try and fix. You see he's coming round now, so we'll focus just mainly on that side, and then we can turn the part over and come back in here. We can focus mainly on that side there, and that part is starting to fold round on itself. And we can hold down and then just bring even pressure over. And we've got there on the instructions, we've got a guide as to how far it goes. So if we actually look, we're not far off. It's this side here, and this is the bit here that's going to struggle, because we're having to bend that whole part. So we need to focus on that part there, just where there's no perforations. But you need to be careful we don't put a bend in there. We don't want to put a bend in. So it's just a case of just having to work this part, and it comes down to practice again. As with many of these techniques, you just have to give it a go. Try and watch as many different tutorials, however different modelers do it, and then figure out what works well for you and give it a go. And what I would say is, if you're not understanding what I'm saying or getting the concept, then put a quick note in the comment section and ask me to explain it again, and I'll find another part we can do rolling with. But there we go. I think we can see now, after a bit of rolling and gentle manipulation, we've got a nice curve in that part. You can get proper rolling milled tools for it, where it's milled aluminium with a semicircle groove in that you can use a specific size rod and push the part in. I don't have any of that, but I do have solid metal rods and other round radiuses that I can use to form parts. So now that we've gotten that far, we need to test fit this point up. And he fits not bad. Look at that. A little bit of manipulation, that's going to be there. Now I think if you look here, you've got this central line, and I think that central line marries up with that line there. So that part goes in there. If we line those points up, it's not bad. And those points that marries up there. So the plastic part pretty much reflects where MA4 run, and then this part's going to go on the top here. So what we can do, now that we've gotten this far, is we can actually maybe fit one side and glue it in place. And then we can come back and we can look at gluing this side in place. So let's get some glue on the go. So I'll just run it on that part there on the other side of where MA4 is, and we'll put plenty on because we want a really good strong bond. And as I said, I've been over this part with the sand and stick to key it up to get as much surface area as we can for the glue to adhere to, and get a good strong bond between the metal part and the plastic part. So a decent amount of glue there, and then I'll just put a run of glue in here in the middle, and then we'll come and we'll just fit this part in. And we'll make sure it goes underneath where MA4 is, and then we'll just push and hold. And we'll wait for that glue to grip and cure before we do any more manipulation to this part. Again, you can use accelerator if you want. I don't think we need to. Now that we've got it jointed on this side, we can then gently push that part around and see if it fits this side, which actually does not too bad. Not too bad at all. So the idea of putting MA4 on first, I think, was a good idea. So I'm going to leave that cured just for a little moment, and then we'll come back and we'll do the same. We'll run a bead of glue here along the plastic and we'll get that fitted in, so we can then come and fit that last piece in. So we'll just give this a chance to cure up and get a real good strong bond before we do any more manipulation. So back shortly. Now that the glue has had a chance to set up, we'll come back in and we'll get this side done. So generous amount of glue, not too much that's going to go everywhere, but enough that's going to give a good strong bond. Drop it in there, wipe away any excess. Get it right along the part, and then just roll that part in, get it on the other side of MA4, and then hold until the glue cures. Won't take long. It will be a good strong bond. And obviously because we've rolled the photo etch, then there's not going to be a huge spring effect on the metal wanting to pull this part apart. There we go. Gently ease the pressure and you'll know the glue's attached because it won't come apart. And that's looking really rather nice. Happy with that. Nice radius on it. And yeah, it looks like an exhaust heat shield. A little bit flat in there, but we can live with that. Right, next part to put on is this part here. So we'll just test fit it first. Make sure we get the bolt detail to the top, and we use our flat tweezers. So that just sits on the top of the plastic part and then bonds to the photo etch part, and that actually works pretty well. So what we can do is we can just bond the bottom, and we'll do one side like that, get it in, seat it on the plastic part, and then get it seated on the metal part. Make sure we clear any glue stains away. Use the tweezers just to nip the parts together, and then with our glue applicator, if it's got a bit gubby with glue, we just get the old lighter, burn off the dried in glue, and then just spread the glue between the joints, and then come in with the tweezers and grip it together. Shouldn't take too long to go off. No, it doesn't. That's it. If you want to straighten up the joint, just come in with the bending pliers and just give it a tweak just to straighten it up. There we go. And then we can just, this metal part's obviously fractionally wider than the plastic part, so we've got a little bit of a gap there. So we can just come back in and we'll let the capillary action of the glue get into that corner. Get ourselves a Q-tip, cotton bud, just whilst the glue's still wet, and just wipe it through, and then that seals that joint up. But all in all, we have one exhaust stack, which is fantastic. So next part here I think is a winch assembly of some sort. There's some photo etch to do for that, so I will just work with that exactly the same way I've done this, and then we'll get on and I'm going to build this winch just to see how I go. And when you guys come back, it'll probably be a number of hours later, but we'll be building the partner to this winch. So left hand side, right hand side, and I'll show you how that goes. So we'll see you back shortly. Welcome back to the channel, guys. We are moving on. So moving on from completing the exhaust stack in the last section, then moving on to the winches. So we're going to go from this to this, a completed winch assembly. Not too bad, a little bit tricky in places, but all very doable. So starting off, we've got the winch drum. Let me just maneuver stuff around that I've got a bit of space. This is the biggest challenge with this kit, is obviously making space to film. We're going to have to do quite a bit of photo etch work here, and it is challenging to say the least. Right, I am in shot, which is good. So down here extra thin, as always on the plastic parts, and just make sure that we've got a good square seated part, and then make sure we get the orientation right, because it does matter. These winches are handed, I believe, left and right, so we need to make sure we've got them on the way they're supposed to be. So the next thing to do is to get the winch cable on. Now, Hobby Boss give us what is actually really nice wire rope, but, and here's the but, it's an absolute pain in the hoop to try and get super glue to grip this. So through trial and error, I found that if I burn the end, it's plastic coated rope, and we get down to some copper cable, that then gives us something to glue on to the cable drum. Now, what it says in the instructions is notice rope orientation. So that's basically which way the rope is wound on and is pointing off the drum. So making sure we get the orientation right, we need to get a drop of super glue. In the corner of the drum, and then we'll get tweezers. We want to place that rope right in the corner of the drum in an orientation that's going to aid us winding it up. So tight in, hold it down, and I found that when I was doing the first one, the little skeeter activator, the super glue was really struggling to bond to this outer plastic coating. I don't know what is on it, but it was really challenging to get it to stick and to get it to bite. So if we can just gently pull away our tweezers without actually pulling the rope off, we'll be doing really, really well, which I think we've managed that. So it's just a case now of winding the rope on. Yeah, there we go. See, it's just not worked straight away. Right, I do have another plan, which I probably should have done on the last one. Would have made life a lot easier. So we can get a drill bit. Doesn't tell you the diameter of the rope, but it's going to be, again, 0.5 of a mil or something like that. So we'll get a drill bit. Right in at the corner. And we'll just drill a hole. And don't worry, you're not going to see any of this. But I think this is all we can do to get this to work properly. Right, hole drilled. So now we've got a hole drilled, what we can do, feed the rope down the hole. Yeah, there we go, that's in nice and tight, and then we start winding. And the trick is to keep the tension on the rope and not let the winch drum go, so that the wire rope then springs itself off, because it does have a good bit of spring in it when you wind it tight like this. But you can see how I'm winding that all the rope is laid tight together, and that's how it would be in real life. So it does pay to take a bit of time to wind this rope very accurately. There's no way they would let the winch rope bunch up, kink over, or generally get snagged, because that would just end up big problems. And you remember, these winches are what they're using the winch 60-ton main battle tanks on. They need to be working absolutely perfectly. And a good winch operator will make sure that they lay the rope down when they're winching in, that it lays nicely over one another to stop the kinks forming, because if you get a kink in the wire rope, it actually makes a weak point. And as I said, you're winching 60-ton main battle tanks. The last thing you need is to have a weak point in the rope that then ends up with it breaking. So what I did, I got halfway through, It's got some super glue, and we'll just lay that glue on, let it soak down through. And then we'll get some accelerator, and we're just doing this to try and help the rope A, glue together, but B, not spring back if you happen to let go. And the first winch drum, I think I wound about half a dozen times before I managed to get it to a point where I was happy. It doesn't take long, but it's definitely worth doing right. And you get plenty of rope, so don't worry about having to run out, because you won't run out. More than enough rope to do what you need to do. Every now and again you can stop and just make sure you got the layers right. You can use a pair of tweezers just to set the rope, set the lay down. So I think it's about three layers around the drum. It very easily sorts itself out when you use a pair of tweezers just to get the rope laid down properly. You can see that's looking really good. And if we look at the one we've done already, then we pretty much go a fair piece around the drum yet. That's the other problem with it. It picks up anything it wants to. So make sure your workbench is reasonably clear, otherwise you're going to snag with stuff with the rope. So we're now at the point where we're on the last layer. I came roughly about halfway across, just a little over halfway across, 2/3 back across with the last layer. And that gives us a really, really nice looking drum of winch wire. And usually when you get winch cable on winch drums, then it's just flowery, well not flowery, but fluffy rope. It's absolutely useless. But this, whatever coating is on this obviously plasticized wire. It's really in scale, and quite impressed with it. Alright, we're roughly 2/3 of the way over there. I'm going to put another layer of super glue on. A little bit of accelerator. Hopefully that'll bond up. Just turn a little bit more. Always best to have plenty and not need it, as not have enough and need it. It looks like we've been successful winding this on, so we'll just cut that off there. And there is the winch rope assembly. Now hopefully we'll let that go. It's going to stay. Yeah, you can see the spring that's on that, but it's not going to unwind all the way. I think we might put another drop more super glue on that, because the last thing you want is this thing to uncoil like a clock spring, because it is very annoying, to say the least. And it's just very keen to go. Alright, I think we're there. I hope. Not quite convinced. Well, what we can do anyway. So we need to put on the end. So got the winch rope orientated in the right way. One end on there. One end on there. It's a tight fit, but that doesn't matter. That means it'll be easy to keep the orientation. Right. So now we've got B7. And there is a little bit of flash to clean off of these, and I haven't done it yet, so luckily the flat file fits between the bolt detail there, so it's very, very easy to quick swipe the file, and we'll check B10 because it's got the same ejector pin marks. Right. So make sure that we've got the winch in the correct orientation. Offer the part up, and it locates really nicely in its locating points, and come in with extra thin. And then same again with B10. And now you get these parts on, it kind of gives the winch a bit more security, so you're not going to lose the wire rope. It's not going to unwind on you. Right, give it a good pinch together. Right, so we've got the basis of the winch now. That's good. So there's that part there. So what do we need to do next? Well, next we've got to make the winch lay down device. I need to just do a little bit of filing, which I haven't cleaned that part up properly. Right, so that part glues on there like that, and it is supposed to be at an angle. So just glue and hold, wait for it to take a grip. Right. Some of these parts are a little bit flashy. I don't know if we saw it when we were doing the kit review, but there is just a little bit of flash here and there. Nothing that a quick swipe with a scalpel won't sort out. Obviously you should have done it before we glued it. Well, since when have I ever been that organised? Right, so this is where we'll be able to get this loose wire problem sorted out. So we can put this wire back into orientation and pull it tight. Okay, and then this piece here, we can hold on to that there. Just get it coiled over, bunched up properly. And then we need to put this piece on here in the middle, and it does locate either side of the winch drum, and glue it down. And what this will do will prevent our winch from uncoiling, which is exactly what we need. So just get it in the right orientation, get it to the point we're happy, and there we go. And what we can do, if we want it just to flash off a little bit quicker, so we'll take a little bit of super glue and just glue the head to augment the extra thin we used. So same on both sides. And there should be enough activator residue on these parts just to let this glue kick off really quickly, but that's that on, and that's going to stop the winch cable from unraveling. The next thing we've got to do is we've got to put on this part here, which is MC10. I've taken the liberty to fold that off camera because it was so small and tricky, but you can see you've got that profile there. You can hold the part up to. You think, yeah, that's pretty good. If I get it the right way, of course, it helps. So you just hold that over the profile and you think, yep, that's good. That goes on with a bit of super glue as well. I have to say that I'm really impressed with the detail that's on these winches. Got a nice embossed square or rectangle there for this part to sight onto. So that's it sitting there on the front of the winch. And then the next thing to do is to get the cable end. Now that hooks onto the brass part we've just put on. So what I did on the other one is I put it in place and then took the cable and just used as a guide and cut the cable to the right length. There we go. And then once the cable is cut, we get some super glue out. Too much super glue there. And then whilst the glue is still wet, obviously, we get the end and feed it in. And that's it. Give it a spin. Make sure the glue's worked right into that part. And then we can use a little bit of accelerator. Give it a moment to go off, and then all we have to do is take that and then hook that part down onto the foot wedge part. And of course, there you go. You can see how bloody annoying this thing is for not sticking. Really annoying. So, take two. Now the problem we've got is when you're working with stuff that's had accelerator put on it, that accelerator does still stay active and it will cure up everything really rather quickly if you don't get it in quick enough. So yeah, like I said, I have no idea what is on the coating of this plastic of the wire, but it really does not want to bond very well at all to super glue. Very, very inconvenient. I've never had this problem before with anything. So it's obviously a trade-off of good looking wire and its ability to bond stuff. But anyway, that's it bonded in place. So we've got that hooked underneath the brass eye, and that is the main winch assembly done. So next we have a couple of photo etch details. So we've got these two parts here to put on, which I'll just do off camera because I'm very conscious of time. Give this a little file just to make sure there's no bearing or anything. And then all I'm going to do is run a little bit of super glue along these parts here and glue these two parts down, and then we'll come back and we'll look at forming these two photo etch parts to bring this winch assembly together. So give me a couple of minutes to sort those two bits out and we'll be right back.